On this episode, we answer a lot of your questions, including talking about the new Mazda CX-9. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Tom Muchler.
I'm Jake Fisher.
And I'm Mike Monticello.
Hey, Mike, we want to welcome you to Talking Cars. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. Well, I was been out in California for the last 15 years. I was at Road and Track Magazine for 10 years, and then I was at Edmunds.com for the last 5 years. And now I'm out here with you guys.
Oh, cool. We are so happy to have you here. The last couple of episodes, we haven't had time to get to questions. So this episode, all questions. All questions, all the time. First question from Brian Rosato. Can't wait for them to talk about the new Mazda CX-9. Guess what we bought yesterday?
It's Christmas.
That's right. We bought ourselves a new Mazda CX-9 Touring. We also happen to have a CX-9 signature press car here at the track at the same time, and we've driven it. What do you think?
You know, I like it. It's funny. There's some things about it. There's some things I really like, and there's some things that I'm a little surprised at. You know, it's got this 2.5 liter turbocharged four-cylinder, which is a big thing for Mazda.
Sure.
It's got plenty of power, but just off the line, even it feels a little diesel-y. It's kind of a little gruff all the time. It's never quiet, and so it's, like I said, plenty of power. But I was just, even on the highway, you always have that sense of that the engine is there, yet the car is much quieter than it used to be. Everything else about the car is really quiet.
Right. I mean, we used to complain constantly about Mazdas being noisy.
We still complain about that. And yeah, it appears that they finally made a quiet Mazda. Dream the impossible dream. I mean, we're big fans of Mazdas. A lot of Mazda's lineup. I mean, they have a lot in common. They're very sporty to drive and all that good stuff, and very fuel efficient, but they've always been noisy. And I think that was kind of my overwhelming thing. Like, wow, this thing is actually quiet. They figured out how to throw in the 50 pounds of sound deadening or whatever they have to add to it.
Yeah, we sat through the presentation yesterday that the old CX-9 had 17 pounds of sound deadening, and this one has something like 54. I mean, it's a massive increase in sound
and this
deadening.
is what
and double laminated glass on the windshield and on the front side windows. But I mean, it's what all car companies are doing.
All car companies are doing this. There is quite, I mean, I know when I built my race car, you know, I sat there with the chisel in the cold, and I was, you know, taking off huge chunks of sound deadening. And this was on a Toyota MR2.
I was going to say, there wasn't a ton of sound deadening.
But there was. I mean, there was
many
many pounds of sound deadening, even in a mid-80s Toyota MR2. So yeah, they're adding that. That's really important. I mean, when you're driving the car, you want to be quiet. I mean, I think they got rid of most of the sound of the engine.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of a gruffness
It's a little
to
gruff.
it.
It's a little gruff.
It doesn't have the smoothness of a V6.
No.
Well,
But it's got really
it depends
good,
on which V6 you're talking about.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean,
the outgoing
right.
3.7 liter, which they had sourced from Ford, was not the most refined.
I mean, I think this
Right.
is more refined than that, and it doesn't need to downshift all the time.
Well, I was
too.
going to say, I like that they stayed with a 6-speed automatic transmission. I like that it's still a normal transmission, and it still has, you know, you can put it over in manual mode, and downshift is forwards and upshift is backwards. It's a nice normal transmission, and it doesn't have to shift. I'm a little tired of these 8 and 9 speeds that are always shifting. And because it has power way down low,
it's got a lot of torque down low.
it doesn't, you know, it's not constantly being upset.
Right, and that actually brings us to one of the more interesting parts of this, one of the more interesting trivia bits about this car is that Mazda gave it 2 horsepower ratings. One on regular fuel, I think it's 227 on regular fuel, and
250.
250 on premium. The thing is that that is horsepower. It's at the top end of the RPM curve. And it brings the old adage out that Americans buy horsepower, but we love torque. And this has a ton of torque right off the lot.
So torque is all of that kind of the low-end power that you feel. I mean, horsepower is actually just calculation. Everyone quotes horsepower numbers, but it's really a calculation of torque at what RPM. And that's what it really is. And most engines, they actually produce the power down low when it's actually doing the higher RPM. It's actually at higher speeds, then you're actually getting that maximum power. The point is that you're driving around a 3-row SUV, you're not driving it at 6,000 RPM. Your feeling of being quick, you're not doing quarter-mile times on this. I mean, maybe some people are, I doubt it. But it's like, it's around town, it's normal driving, it's between those low RPMs. And here's the interesting thing, and this actually ties to a story that we just put out about when your premium fuel is recommended. So we actually did a whole bunch of testing, and we found that on cars that have premium fuel as recommended but not required, when we put in regular gas, there was no difference that we could tell. There was no difference in fuel economy, there was no difference in coloration. because on any difference is actually at the very high end, which most people aren't really experiencing. And this is actually was what this data shows about this car. So there's 2 horsepower ratings, but the thing is identical until you get to like 4, 5, 6,000 RPM.
And you hardly ever, most people hardly ever go over 4,000 RPM, so why does it matter? And I hope we're not overstepping our bounds here, but Mazda told an interesting story about testing this car, getting it ready, that they actually went out and followed moms driving in their SUVs home and trying to see what kind of acceleration they did leaving the school. And they said, first of all, they actually accelerated a lot harder than they thought they would.
Right.
But it's just funny that that's what they did. They went out and followed people to see what their driving patterns were to tune the car.
Or dads leaving.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the sad thing is that
I'm one of those.
the sad thing is, I bet a lot of those parents were just driving in suburban America, straight streets. They may have missed out the fact that this is a really spry handling SUV. This feels like a Mazda
So
to drive.
It
really
drives smaller
nimble.
than it is. It's one of those drive smaller vehicles.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you look at different car companies and they try to have like, a DNA, right? A certain, way their cars drive. And, even like a company like BMW, you get into the X1, it doesn't drive like a BMW. You get into like Mercedes-Benz, they all drive pretty nice, but you know what? The CLA doesn't drive anything like the rest of the lineup. It seems like everything that Mazda's putting out, and I include the Scion IA, which is built by Mazda, they drive very similar. And if you got out of a Miata or a Mazda 3 and you get into this, you're going to recognize the way the car steers. You're going to recognize that. It has that same feel, and it's very, very enjoyable for those who care about that.
Right, so what you have here is you have a car that has plenty of torque down low, a car that feels light and nimble to drive, a car that's quiet, and you wind up with a car that masks speed very well, a car that is very rewarding to drive for the enthusiast in a class that there's not a ton of great driving mid-size SUVs unless you start getting to an Audi Q7 or a BMW X5.
Right, and now you're talking about a lot of money.
Right, now you're talking, I mean, our CX-9 Touring here is $40,000. Those cars are 65.
Yeah, so you're way below that. And this is a comfortable vehicle too. I mean, the ride's pretty good. The seats are really comfortable.
The adjustments are a little fiddly on the seat.
They are, and I know some people will probably bother that you can't move the front of the seat up. You can only move the rear of the seat up. So when it's at its maximum lowest, you're not going to be able to get more thigh support. They suit me fine, but some people may have a problem with it. But I think they're really comfortable seats, and every CX-9 gets the exact same seats, just different material.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, this is a very rewarding to drive SUV.
And I think you're exactly right. In this segment, you don't see a whole lot of that. In small cars, mid-sized cars, you can get that. In terms of SUVs, yeah, you kind of have to really ante up. I mean, you get a Highlander or a Pilot, they don't drive that great. I mean, they're great functional cars. They're really refined.
I would argue they feel roomier inside.
Oh,
especially the Pilot. The Pilot's kind of like a minivan. But I mean, I think the thing is that they're not drivers' vehicles. So, this kind of just shows you don't have to go to an Audi Q7. You don't have to go to a BMW X5 in order to get something that's enjoyable to drive and still have a larger SUV.
Right. You also don't have to go to a Tesla Model X.
Yeah.
And our last episode was about the Tesla Model X, and we got quite a bit of feedback about that. Some people agreed with us that the Falcon wing doors and the big windshield and the interior layout left something to be desired when it came to practicality. Other people were less amenable. Other people made personal attacks against
Let's
me.
hear from them.
Well, no,
And that wasn't me. I didn't
shocking.
say
No, that was
anything
not
about it.
you.
That is absolutely
For the record.
shocking.
I know, the internet, personal attacks and comments, hard to believe. But here's a comment that actually sums up the negative comments pretty well and had not many obscenities in it, so we'll go with this one. Why is it that you can't get used to things that are new and fresh? All you care about is function and things only your mom would think about when she buys a car. People who buy Model X's are thinking about the future of automobiles, regardless of the complexity the car has, especially with those gull-wing doors. They sort of care about practicalities, but that's not their first priority when buying a Model X. It is, in fact, the wow factor.
Our next question. No, I mean, look.
First off, don't throw the mom thing in, because it was your mom who was asking why there aren't more convertibles in the world, right?
Yes, my mom wants to know why people buy practical cars, because she thinks that everything should be a convertible in a sports car. But anyway, so I mean, here's the thing, is that we are all for innovation. We are all for the future of vehicles. We are all for changing stuff in a better way. This is the difference. This is the fork in the road, okay? Do you change things just for change's sake, or do you change things to make them better? And this is where the Tesla Model S veered differently than the X.
Right.
The Model S said, hey, we'll get rid of the starter button because you don't need it. I'm like, hey, they're right. That's pretty innovative and that's pretty cool. They simplified some things.
You can download updates through the cloud. You know.
That is innovation that makes things
We have an
better.
electric car now that can go 250 miles and goes 0 to 60 in
can
4
charge in
seconds.
4 hours through dual
That's all the
charging.
innovation. The future of automobiles is not gull-wing doors with a ton of motors in them.
Whatever happened to modesty? Why do we need to show off? Why this need to show off? And
Do you know anything about the car industry?
I don't. The gull-wing doors, they look cool, but everyone knows, we know now that Tesla has reliability issues. When you put something like that on this car, you're just asking for more problems. Even the front doors open oddly. You know, they have the weird way that they open. You have to block them so they don't hit another car. The second row seats don't fold down. That's ridiculous in an SUV.
Right.
I mean, when you sit in the third row, it seems like you have great leg room for your inner knee, but your other knee is bashed up against a very hard seat back. So there's some things about this vehicle that just don't even make sense from an SUV standpoint.
Right, and I mean, if you do want to say that people buying these cars are going for the wow factor, fine. They can decide the wow factor on their own. But in the end, it's our job to tell you if it is practical or not, if these things make sense. And sorry, the Model X doesn't.
But you do it
make a ton
best.
of
You get
sense.
the wow factor, and you have stuff that works better. And that is what we expect. And I think that's what I think put Tesla on the map with the Model S. It's like, hey, why not have a big car that's a big hatchback so I could throw stuff in the back? And wow, that makes sense.
Right. There was a lot of clever thinking.
There was
in the Model
so much clever
S.
thinking about what they did. Let's build the whole car around a battery. It's on the floor. That's great.
Let's have a frunk. I mean, yeah, there's a ton of clever practical stuff.
And they're practical.
This
It's
is less
and
clever,
practical.
more cool. Is
That's
what
right.
This is.
Totally.
That's exactly it.
Totally. Car Criteria asks, I am looking for a new truck. I like the F-150, but would like to hear your thoughts about the 2016 Chevy Silverado with the 8-speed automatic. First, let's talk about the difference between the Ford and the Chevy.
Well, it's funny because I'm actually a Ram fan. I love the interior of the Ram. I love the coil spring rear suspension. The infotainment system, the Uconnect, is so easy to use.
Yeah, we just had an article in, I believe, the July issue of the magazine that it is the most satisfying infotainment system among owners by far.
Right. So I love that. Of course, there's the Ram has had some reliability issues. So, but as far as the Ford, I like the Ford. I love those EcoBoost engines. But the handling's a little ponderous at times. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think the Chevy handles a little better.
That's actually a disappointment. It goes back to what you were saying earlier about car companies with DNA. Ford has this DNA of making everything drive well, including a Transit full-size van is a surprisingly good driving vehicle. The one exception is the Ford F-150.
It's really weird, and you'd think it would handle better because it's like 700 pounds lighter.
That's
or
right,
something.
and it's all new.
So why is it? Why does it still feel so ponderous? Especially the front end, it really feels soft, and you're just not sure what's going on through turns.
Yeah, the Silverado is a little more car-like to drive, a little more.
Yeah,
feeling.
I have very little to add with what Mike said. I totally agree. I prefer driving the Ram too for the same reasons, and between them, I'd give up the 1 mile per gallon. I'll drive the Silverado just because I like the way the car rides and handles better.
About the 8-speed in the Silverado, one of the complaints we had about the Silverado with the 5.3 liter is that it felt kind of doggish. It didn't really have much response. Some of it was transmission tuning in order to get 16 miles per gallon out of this truck. For this year, GM has added an 8-speed automatic. It's only on the top trim LTZ versions though, so you are paying a lot of money to get that. We actually drove one, or I drove one recently, and it is better. It does give more response. It is more flowing with power, but again, you have to be willing to spend that kind of money to get that. And it doesn't feel like those EcoBoost engines.
Yeah.
Nor does it feel like the Ram with its 8-speed automatic and that 5.7 Hemi.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking back. Didn't we just say that we were happy that it's only the 6-speed?
Yeah, I know.
I'm telling you,
no.
I'm writing the letter right now.
Did it seem overly shifty, or did it seem
No,
less
but look,
overly
here's
shifty?
the thing. You can, this goes back to a common trap that it's so easy to look at this technology good, this technology bad. It's never that black and white. It is all how you tune it.
Well, let me answer the question. I mean, I'll answer the question I posed, which is if you make an engine that is responsive enough and has a broad enough torque band on it, it really has that power down low, you can get away without the 8-speed automatics. You can get away with, I mean, look, I've been here long enough. Remember driving supercharged 3800 Buick motors with a 4-speed automatic? The thing was beautiful. In fact, let's go back to Tesla a second. You know, you have enough torque in an electric motor, you could get by with 1 gear.
And actually, the funny thing is that despite it being a 5.7 liter Hemi V8, that V8 doesn't make a lot of torque until you're revving it. I know this because I have a Durango.
Oh.
I've never said that before on the podcast.
Really?
Yes, right.
Oh my God.
I have a Durango, and you have to rev it. The 8-speed makes that much. It makes it feel a lot better, and you get better fuel economy out of it. The other thing about the Ford is Ford is more reliable. In the first year, it has above average reliability. It's the most reliable domestic truck you can buy. So hope that helped with that. Also, talking about utility vehicles, I'd appreciate feedback on buying a premium SUV for towing a 4,000-pound travel trailer. This is for my wife and I and 2 small dogs that are in dog crates. The key is carrying camping materials, towing quiet, comfortable long road trips, yet good fuel economy. CR recommends the Lexus GS460 for towing. Nice vehicle, but the back door is a real problem. Not a fan of the Durango. Not
Why
really.
would anyone buy that?
I'll
Did
forgive.
you just try to delete the whole document there? I think that's
That's right. Go away. Are there other options you'd recommend? Audi Q7, Mercedes GLE, Acura MDX hybrid.
Q7, Q7, Q7. I mean,
I think that's one of our favorite vehicles.
it is. I mean, you know, I think we'd keep it here forever if we could, you know, because we own one. And its towing capacity is something like 7,700 pounds. So he's got the towing covered, beautiful interior, wonderful drivetrain with that supercharged V6. The quality is great. When you know, the reliability should be really good.
Yeah, because Audi's corporate reliability has been the best among the Germans.
It's a wonderful vehicle. I mean, and it's, you know, we're talking about vehicles that drive really well, and that's a vehicle that you can have a little excitement when you're driving it as well, even though it's really big.
Yep. Your thoughts?
I totally agree. I mean, I've become so cynical being here as long as I have.
No,
and when
hard to
expensive cars
believe.
like the Q7 come by, I'm like, well, really? Who's going to spend this kind of money? That's one of those cars that you get in, you're like, oh, I see. This is really nice. You know, you kind of got, you could see what you're buying.
Yeah, it drives far better than the Lexus GX460. The GX460 is basically a gussied up 4Runner, and it has. When he was talking about the door opens from the side. It's not a normal. It's not a normal lift gate. I mean, that is a truck-based SUV that doesn't drive that well.
But if you're going to go off-road,
if you're going off-road, it's great.
The
other, he mentions Mercedes GLE, which is a good choice. It feels older than the Q7 because it is older than the Q7. It does have average reliability, which is something for it. But man, that Audi's nice.
Can I throw one more out there?
Yes,
you know,
sir.
I just took a 6-day road trip to down south to Tennessee and North Carolina, and I took our Honda Pilot. And now it's not a premium SUV, but it's gigantic inside.
It will tow 5,000 pounds.
And it'll tow 5,000 pounds. I mean, and when you're driving it, you're thinking, sometimes you think I'm in a minivan, because it's sort of like a glorified minivan. But if you're looking for space, the ability to tow 5,000 pounds, the drivetrain is really smooth. You know, it's a great engine, great transmission. Handling is sloppy, if you care at all about handling, but it rides really nicely. Touchscreen is annoying, but you're talking more like $30,000 to $45,000.
Rather than 65.
Exactly. So it could still serve his needs.
Well, that brings to mind the MDX, the Acura MDX, which also tows 5,000 pounds, is more luxurious. That 9-speed automatic isn't going back to multi-speed automatics. That 9-speed automatic that's in the MDX, it's optional in the Pilot, so you can avoid it, but you have to get it in the MDX, and it's not very nice.
No, and then they have the dual screens that you know, trying to figure out how to change the radio station. You got to go through the manual 3 times and all that's good stuff.
If you've got the money, get the Audi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. One more question about European cars and reliability. A couple episodes ago, we talked about the Jaguar XE. And I said that I'd rather take a chance on a Jaguar XE than an Alfa Romeo Giulia. And someone asked, I'm curious why you think a Jaguar would be more reliable than an Alfa Romeo. Do you have data on the new 4C Alfa sports car suggesting that? Giulia looks way better in the Jag, and having a 500 bar, I have thought about replacing it with the Giulia.
No, we don't have data on the 4C, but we have data from Fiats, and it has been the worst, even comparing them to Jaguars.
Right.
Jaguars,
A little bit of data we have on Jaguars. Jaguars better than
yeah,
Fiat.
I mean, what we're looking at, I mean, we're looking at reliability differently now, and we're looking at Jaguar. When we look at Jaguar as a brand, we have plenty of data about Jaguars. We may not have specific data we could tell you each model year, but looking at Jaguar, it's below average, but
It's inching up.
it's not where Fiat is. And
Right.
Fiat, just every model, every piece of data that we're getting from them is just really bad. So that's what we're looking at. We don't have any Alfa Romeo branded vehicles, but the assumption is that, looking at that, and certainly they're much more complicated than the Fiat vehicles. So I wouldn't roll the dice.
I feel like this is almost like trying to figure out which are the 2 worst baseball teams, and what is it right now? Maybe
Wow.
Atlanta Braves. I mean, it's a little harsh, Minnesota Twins, which one's the worst? These aren't that bad. The Jaguar's not that bad, but I mean, it's just like we're comparing Jaguar and Alfa Romeo. There's a good chance the Alfa Romeo from the past, from Chrysler, from Fiat, there's a good chance there's going to be some reliability issues.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I had personally made the comment is, look, Fiat has been talking about bringing Alfa Romeo to this country for years and years and years. Every year, it's like, oh, they're just about to come. Oh, they're almost here. And it's like, Jaguar's been here. It has a dealer network. There's big investment in it. It's a full model lineup. I'd take a chance on Jaguar actually being here
Me too.
and still being
In a
around
heartbeat,
rather
yeah.
than Alfa
There's
Romeo.
probably will be a few issues here and there with your Jag, but definitely I'd take the risk. I don't think it's a huge risk to take the Jag.
Yeah, they actually have.
Alpha. You're probably
They
taking
actually
the risk.
have some track record
Yeah.
of being sold in America. So
I would avoid the Jaguar too, but I would avoid the Alfa Romeo
That's true.
more. Let me just go on the record there.
maybe you ought to go get an Audi A4.
Yes,
or
exactly.
Or something else.
Yes.
That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Talking Cars. As always, we thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time.